For the ones that have a podcast for a while and they feel like they've plateaued, what are some things that they could do in order to kind of really energize that show?
Yes, I love this question because it's probably not what you're expecting for me to how I will answer it is probably not what you're expecting. If your show has plateaued, the very first thing that you need to do is dig into the discoverability foundational pieces. So when we do podcast audits, for example, yes, we're going to look at your format. We're going to look at your production value and this quality production quality value. That's one piece of it. But we spend a third of the time that we building these audits, we spend all of that time looking at how people are discovering your show, but not in the way that you might think. We are looking at it as if we wanted to find a podcast about agency masterminds. If I'm a person who's looking for an expert in building and scaling an agency, if I'm a person who's looking for the kind of content that you provide, I want to know how your podcast is showing up. That's the angle that we will take first. So we will look at how it's being discovered by people who are searching for the content, because you're never going to grow your audience. You may sustain your audience, but you've got to grow it and put it in front of new people because they need to be able to find you. And there's certain strategic things like the way your show is named and how many characters in your show description, down to what your podcast platform, how your podcast platform the benefits. Are you utilizing all of them? Are they even there for you? And if they are you utilizing all of them? So that discoverability piece and that metadata piece, that's very, very important if a show is stagnating, because a lot of what we're finding right now in 2024 is there's shows that launched during the pandemic when it was a bit of a frenzy and a free for all, but they overlooked the foundational growth pieces because they either didn't know them or they didn't work with an expert to help them set them up
Yeah.
from the beginning in the right
So
way.
does
So
it mean that you
that's the
probably only post it to iTunes and you haven't posted it to iHeart or Spotify,
Yeah.
right?
Well, I mean, we've had crazy examples. Like we've done an audit for a show and they weren't even showing up on Apple Podcasts. And when we dug into it and we were like, why? They were like, oh, well, when we started the show, we didn't know how to get approval on Apple. So we just never did it. And then we forgot. I'm not judging this person. I'm just saying it happens. Like it was a
Oh,
frenzy
it does.
and
Happens
it's
all the
not,
time.
and right. And so, like, I get to look like a genius in some of these scenarios when I do this audit
Mhm.
presentation. And some of it's just crossing T's and dotting I's that you didn't even know were in the word in the first place. But
Yeah.
that's really a core piece. And then there are other elements that once those foundational pieces are in place and you have a really secure confidence that those pieces, the barriers and friction you never even knew you were experiencing,
Mhm.
are broken and fixed for you, then you look at your format. Then you look at, you're always going to want to have good production value. And then you're going to want to look at, like, there are things that you can do, like surveying your audience to make sure that, the content you started putting out may not be the content that people still want to consume right now, or how you're putting it out. Maybe you were always doing long form, but because of the TikTok and the really big increase in short form distribution and the decrease in mental capacity for consuming content, and the literal attention span has decreased as the consumption of shorts have increased, have you matched that cadence? And are you using a strategy that brings a customer in through the short form, converts to the long form? What are you doing on your long form to convert back to the short form? All of these are things that you probably don't sit around thinking about as much as I do, but they're really, really important pieces of the puzzle.
Level up your podcast with advice from the pros at Produce Your Podcast. Subscribe and hit the bell icon to stay updated. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and share it with your network. For more expert tips and services, visit produceyourpodcast.com.